Welcome to my humble little office. My name is Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on March 6, 2023 at approximately 4:18 p.m. PST. Now, I returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I build myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the ones I personally use in my own day-to-day life. And the philosophies I talk about in life are the ones I personally live by. Now, before we get into anything, I'm just going to start off and come out of the gate here. We have Eternity in with the gold. Adam, you are in with the silver. Welcome aboard, both of you. Really happy to see you here. Today is going to probably create some confusion for some people, but I will do my best to answer the questions as I can. Now, I've spent the better portion of my day today writing part of the Yldrbac Chronicles. Needless to say, for the first time since the ice hit up here, I finally went for a walk. Tell you, that kicked the stuffing out of me. That's what I get for not walking anywhere for 6 months, 4 months. 4 months? Yeah, I guess 4 months. And Joe, you're in with the bronze. How we doing? Yep, it's still midnight and Monday night here too. I do have to bring something up here. A file, that is. Nope, not that one. That one. Okay, yeah, that'd be a brilliant idea. How about if we do this? Now, I have been working really hard to get things moving in the right direction in certain areas for me. So how about if we take that, move that down there for just don't have to do that. Move that there for just half a second. And we go right here. And this, of course, where it comes to the books and what have you. And by the way, you'll be happy to know this one. Well, you might be. It'll be a while down the road. Right. But something I have that has long been in the works is the interaction, is what's going on the dark side of the moon. Now, that literally has been in the works, but there is a what do you call it? An offshoot of the Yldrbac Chronicles. Hey, welcome aboard, Julie, and you come in with honorable mention. So with the Yldrbac Chronicles, there is one side story that comes out of it. Well, there's actually more than one. I keep ending up adding stories to it, so I've started putting things in place. But where it comes to a little bit more detail, and I'm just killing a little bit of time here. But remember, guys, when you've got questions, absolutely make certain you put them in all caps. In this way, I'll be able to actually find them. Okay, and I will do my best to answer whatever questions come up within reason. And the ones I'm not going to answer, rest assured, I'll come right out and tell you. Say that one quick. Try that one 3 times fast. There, Julie. D-Worm, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I was looking at something here. Where are we? We are only 22 subscriptions away from the 500 mark at this point. And no, before anybody comes to any brilliant conclusions, I'm not planning on, I've got to be planning on something coming up. 500 is one heck of a marker. Shadow, how you doing? This one you'll appreciate there, Shadow. Some of the others will as well. Turns out my little brother may be able to find me some of the old pewter or the old land figures from way back where D&D is concerned. Because my older brother, the one that passed, apparently had 55 boxes of Dragon magazines and what have you. The man never threw anything out. So from that standpoint, for me, that's just a wonderful little side effect. Yeah, well, I was kind of thinking that myself. My little brother wants a collection, and I really don't. From my end, I've been getting rid of stuff. Right, not my gaming stuff. Don't get me wrong there, but like I told him, if he comes across paints that are still usable, bring him over because let's face it, he's not going to be painting figures. But I'm turning around and getting things straightened out. Like this morning, what was it now? If we take that. Oh, yeah, that's the website that describes what books I've got. Hey, Big J, how you doing? Now, don't take this the wrong way, but I have no idea who Phil Schneider is. Which may be a real bad thing, but we got to remember, I've been reclusive for decades. Well, I've been very reclusive for a decade. Most of my life, I've stayed away from people. So I have no idea who Phil is. So no, we can safely say that I don't have any cool stories about him. However, being an author, I can always make something up and just use a different name to protect my backside. Oh, don't know. I appreciate that, Shadow. Can't tell you anything about Phil himself, but yeah, unfortunately for me. Hey, Raven, how you doing? Glad you could join us. For me, it really boils down to a simple issue. Because I, quite frankly, hid from the world, for better or for worse, a lot of the people that are great big names in the UFO industry, I know virtually nothing of. Okay, by the way, there are a lot of ways of getting a hold of me, but this particular email is what you use to get a hold of me, is the easiest one to use to get a hold of me directly. It's also the email address that I use to get into PayPal, or that I use for other people to get into PayPal for that matter. Okay, but I looked at this and, everybody, there's so many questions about the dark side of the moon. And like I've said, I don't look at the industry. I don't look at what's been said about it. Hey, Nathan, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I did not do any research. I didn't look into what everybody was saying. Statistics, that sort of thing. So we start at the baseline of it. The reason I know what's going on up there is because, frankly, I've been there. Okay, and yeah, you can look at that and go, no, you're just making it up. I've had people tell me that, and then ask me how the heck I knew what was on the other side when they got information. That wouldn't be a shock. The funny thing about it there, Nathan, is a lot of the technology that is being developed gets developed. You love this one in Hollywood. They come up with an idea. They go, how can we make this work? And a lot of it gets made in Hollywood. The concepts get made in Hollywood. And then what ends up happening is the military from around the world go, hey, that's a neat idea. Or a techie from around the world goes, there's a really wild concept. Let's use that. Now, thankfully, they don't do some of the things. I remember back when computers first came out, there was a Star Trek, a little almost a binary game of Star Trek. It was still played on the monochrome monitor. Okay. And when you played it, there was one neat little aspect that you had in that game. It was a bit of a glitch, I think, but you could actually transport somebody to 5 different locations at the same point at the same time. Needless to say, this didn't work well for their health, but it was a creative way to get rid of a problem. So let's start with the real beginning side of this. Well, we're at 4:28 right now, local time. Okay, let's start with the obvious thing. There's this question about, was the moon? Yeah, in all fairness, Nathan, I am. I ended up, I've slept a total, and this is just absolutely stupid in some ways. I've slept a total of three and a half hours, I think. Now I'm curious. Today, 3 hours. Okay, since midnight last night. But I slept 3 hours in a break with three runs at it. The reality is I don't sleep a whole lot. Okay, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not. All they gotta do is go over there and tell people. I mean, it's not like it's a hidden section over there. This is the funny part about it. But let's start back at the very beginning here. First and foremost, from everything I've come to understand, the moon is not, first of all, it wasn't a man-made construct, or for that matter, technically an alien-made one. I mean, in a sense it was put together in a very methodical order. Okay, and wasn't done by humans, so therefore, by definition, it was done by aliens. Okay, now bear in mind, every planet out there is not something that was made by another race. Okay, some of the planets were just simply, they evolved under natural means. Okay, it's just some of them needed a little bit of help. Okay, now when we look at the far side of the moon, they call it the dark side, but I'll tell you, you gotta remember it's on the side of the sun. Okay, and from that end, hey Henry, how you doing? Glad you could join us. From that side, it's a pretty bright area, but they've got all the necessary. They've got proper tinted windows, if you will, or force fields to stop the radiation that comes in off the sun directly. Because unlike Earth, the moon does not have a very big atmosphere. Okay, it's the atmosphere that protects a lot of us. Okay, but up there, much as I will tell you, the moon itself has an atmosphere. Now, don't get me wrong, there's not a prayer a human will be able to breathe on it, because the thing is only I think it's only a couple of millimeters thick, or maybe like a little less than a 16th of an inch off the ground. But it is developing. Now it's going to be a little hard pressed. Oh, absolutely it is. The reality there, Nathan, where it comes to the sunlight, because we've got an atmosphere here, it dulls it down a fair deal. I'm having a lot of trouble speaking. That's working well. How you doing, Dogface? Glad you could join us. So when we start looking at the far side of the moon, at the so-called dark side. Okay, granted, because nobody set up satellites over there to act as relay stations, radio silent, absolutely, as far as man is concerned. As far as the off-world is concerned, not so much so. Yeah, I wish that were the case in my situation there, Joe. Joe's just saying empaths tend to sleep a lot. The energy around them sets it off. I don't know if you mean frequently or if you mean a long time, because if we're talking a long time, doesn't work for me. Because like I said, I sleep. Well, in January, I slept an average. You know, in January I slept an average of 5.03 hours a night. Last month, in February, I slept an average of 5.11. And I felt like I was oversleeping half the time. You know, the one thing about it though is that I do know that when you're not sleeping as much, you have a potential of getting a lot more done. Yeah, okay, I appreciate the clarification there, Joe, because I don't sleep very long at all. I'd like to on occasion, but I find if I actually sleep longer than 6 hours, I'm groggy as all get out. That is quite possible. Yeah, Julie's just going, perhaps we escape that by being hermits. But no, when you look at the dark side of the moon, okay, first and foremost, the thing is pretty occupied. Okay, now do understand a lot of their stuff is done underground. It's not like we have major towering cities with incredible skyscrapers and what have you. Hey Philip, how you doing? Well, I guess that's Baron coming out there saying, did somebody say Kermit? You know, but yeah, we're just thinking that, hermits have a tendency of avoiding a lot of stresses by just not going near them. My problem is I can feel it, I can literally feel it around the world. But when you go to the far side of the moon, there are definitive craters that are used as landing bays. Okay, but something you gotta remember with those. Okay, with their landing bays, when you look at it from orbit, all you'll see is another crater. If you time it right, that's great. You get to see it, and then whoever's seeing it is told, "Don't say anything, because this is a big secret." It was kind of like when they came up with the idea that the moon was made out of Swiss cheese. Okay, but no, the far side of the moon has it basically is it's a way station come trade in it's almost a jump point. Okay, now there is a jump point. I will tell you this: there is a jump point just outside the orbit of just outside the orbit of Pluto. Okay, and you pick it up about once you hit the orbit of Pluto, there is a jump point that is about the same distance from Pluto to the jump point as it is from the Earth to the Sun. So we're looking at about 93 million miles, if I remember the numbers correctly. Okay, but you pick it up and go ahead and try this one out. Okay, if you pick up the orbit of Pluto, line it up from Earth, and go another 93 million miles past the orbit of Pluto, you'll find a jump point if you're heading for Sirius. If you line up for Sirius, you'll find a jump point. Now, the neat part is, on the dark side of the moon, there are repair stations underground. They're under some of the bigger craters. Don't ask me the name of the craters. I can tell you that the biggest crater on the moon, there's a gateway under it. There's actually an opening that they built in case a ship shows up damaged, so they can drop it in underground, do the repair work necessary, and ship it out again. Now, if I had a picture of the moon, I could take a look at it, but I don't. I'm not going looking for one. Okay, but I will tell you there are repair ships underneath, underneath the craters, under the surface of the moon. No, the moon is not hollow, but there are tunnel works under it. very much like there are tunnel works in Earth. Okay, in what people are calling hollow Earth. And technically, Earth isn't hollow. It just has gaps. Because if you think about it, if it were hollow, we'd have a bigger problem. Okay, now, that being said, there is no doubt, at least not from my standpoint, that with the consortium on board, with them running things there, the other races that are coming into the area, check in to start with. Okay, to make sure there's been no new rules that have been put in place. Hey Carlito, I did not see you come in, but welcome aboard and absolutely say hi to your mom for me. I do appreciate it. When we take a look at it, there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of interaction, but the consortium on the moon is there as a governing body, and they're there to make sure people know what the rules are where it comes to Earth. Okay, and yeah, they have absolutely no qualms. The consortium I'm referring to has absolutely no qualms about removing problem children. Now, do understand, if one of the visiting ships decides it's going to violate terrestrial protocol, the consortium will take it out with no retribution, no punishment to the race involved. It is strictly done on a ship by ship basis on that case, unless they find out that it was sanctioned by the race. Julie's just asking, do you know what made it ring for an hour when they dropped the equipment in the early moon visits? Well, essentially, yeah, that's pretty cut and dried. See, there is underneath the surface of the moon, and it's not really that far under it. Okay, underneath the surface there. Oh, okay. I will answer that for you in just 10 seconds, there, Philip. Underneath the surface of the moon, there are constructs. They are not, by the way, iron. Okay, these are made with a foreign, if you will, an alien element. Okay, much stronger than what mankind builds. But all that had to happen was when they dropped the stuff, because the moon is not absolutely stable as far as the surface cover goes. When they drop the cameras, all it would have to do is land just right and hit, because mankind's sensors will pick up that kind of impact. So when they dropped it simply hit a shallow point of cover. And of course, you think it echoed up here. You should have tried what it echoed like down there. This is one of the reasons why they turn around and try and make sure that the people up there keep things covered. And you always have to watch for what mankind is up to, because the last thing these guys want is to turn around and have mankind go, okay, we now have absolute concrete proof. Now let's mobilize our military, such as it is for interstellar or interplanetary warfare. The off-worlders don't exactly want a problem. Okay. Now, in answer to your question there, who was it? There we are. Philip. The problem children, from their standpoint, are ones that are told, okay, you do not, you make sure if you're going down, you make certain that you stay hidden. Now, some of these guys, when they come in, they go, I want to make a stir. I want to have that fine little joyride and I'm just going to buzz some of the locals. Those people only get to buzz once. Okay. But it's kind of like trying to tell humans, you tell a classroom of people, don't do this. You know somebody's going to go out and do it. The difference is, on Earth, if you go out and do something you're told not to, you get your hand slapped, basically. I.e., you're told, don't drive over this speed limit. And you decide, no, I'm going to do that because it's fun to push limits. On Earth, you get your hand slapped. You may get your license pulled or a license fine. These guys, when they do that, they get shot. Okay. Or they can get tossed into a fusion reactor. In either event, they end up dead. Kind of cuts down on repeat offenders. It was funny. I actually asked an officer on Earth here one day, "Hey Maggie, how you doing? Glad you could join us." I actually asked an officer on one day on Earth here. I looked at him and I said, "Can you explain to me why the police don't just shoot dangerous offenders?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Well, it doesn't deter other criminals." I says, "No, but it will cut down on your repeat offenders." Well, the poor police officer just looks at me and he goes, "The best lawyer on the planet would have a hard time with that one, arguing that point." But when we are dealing off-world, now I know some of you have heard the term radio command. Well, radio command is not another race. It's a section of the Galactic Consortium. Okay. And they take people from any walk of life. Before you jump on that, guys, no. Humans are not part of radio command because humans at this point are not part of the consortium itself. They are being guided to make headway into that realm. Okay, but that's being done one step at a time. As you already know, humans are not good at following rules. But on the dark side of the moon, rules are what actually keep you alive. Okay. So over there, we've got a lot of traffic. In answer to the question somebody asked a while back, roughly speaking, that I'm aware of, there are in excess of 2,500 member races of the consortium. Okay. Now, in the 2 books I've got right now, I've only documented about 100 of them. And many of them you'll find are right in line with what other books have put out. I just may not know them by the same name. Okay. Now, the neat part, and do I have much of a library myself? No. As a matter of fact, I got handed a book the other day. And, the reality is, I've never read the thing. Well, the other day, probably 6 months ago. Much of them got on my shelf. I've never actually picked the thing up to look inside it much. But, what are we looking at here? I really should keep my eye up on top because I can see the writing up there. It's a little bigger. Just looking to make sure I didn't miss a question. And remember, guys, if you have a question, absolutely, if you would be so kind as to put your question in print in large, like in all caps. This is just a way in my world of you going, "Hey, I've got a question." Okay, it's not a question of yelling. Right. It's a question of simply being able to see it. So when I'm looking at the way the world is working, I look at the dark side of the moon, I go, you talk about what's the word I'm looking for? We talk about, China pulled a really neat one the other day. And they went and they started pushing for ownership of the moon. I can see there being a bit of a problem here. I'm not sure what it is, though. I mean, it's kind of like somebody going, oh, I know. Somebody else comes in and says, let's keep it localized, if you will. You own your own house or you rent your own house, your own apartment or whatever. And some total stranger, comes here and doesn't talk to the government. They just go, I now own your home. This is what it amounts to with China going, we own, we get first dibs on the moon. Guys, I hate to be the one to throw a wrench in things, but somebody's already living there. And I can see there being some sort of conflict. On the plus side, the ones that are living on the moon are not actually aggressive. That can change, by the way. The way humans seem to do things, i.e., let's shoot the person first and then ask if they're friendly. I'm not sure, but I know in my case, if somebody walks up to me and smacks me in the back of the head and then asks me if I'm in a good mood, the odds are my answer is going to be no. So I mean, we've got a lot going on. And the fact of the matter is, the off-worlders have figured out how to conceal their ship signatures from Earth. It's not really that complicated when you think about it. All you have to deal with to conceal Earth sensors is a quick EMP pulse that is very localized and shuts down whatever satellite is being used at the time, as in puts a glitch in it. Okay. Now, they don't do enough damage to create a problem, but they certainly do enough damage to make people question, was that something there? Now, you'll notice a lot of people that have gone to the moon, have, when they've come out of hiding, have come out and said, hey, we saw something over there, but we weren't allowed to talk about it. And, this happens all too often. But in all fairness, if we look at modern tech and you look at the mess we made already, there are so many things that are being used for war right now that could be used for healing. And over on the dark side of the moon, they are specialists in communication. And their medical facilities are absolutely nothing less than astounding. Okay, if you guys ever watched and I agree with you there, Julie. Julie's just going, unfortunately, this world has been doing that here for a long time. I pray people don't take their bad ways elsewhere. Well, this is where we come in. Okay. And this is where our job comes in. Very important. And that is to remind people that if we focus on the positive, we focus on communication and the creative side of things, of doing things in a positive fashion, we can teach people to be more creative, more tolerant, more observant. But we have to stop finding new and exciting ways to separate ourselves. Okay, because right now, the most aggressive people seem to be in positions of power. And by the way, that's not a good sign. That really isn't a good sign when you take a look at taking your most aggressive individuals and putting them in a position of power. If you're looking for peaceful contact, this isn't necessarily going to work. Yeah, no doubt there, Joe. I'm guessing it's not to turn around and say thank you very much. Joe just said my response to someone slapping me in the back of the head is not good for them. See, in this neat little story here, as a matter of fact, this and he shows the picture of him shows up here, but he shows up in Birth of the Wolfpack first. This chap here is Blade. Now he's got a variation. You guys have heard the term. It's a good day to die. Well, Blade has a slightly different take on it. His usual comment is it's a good day for them to die. Bear in mind, Blade is a, shall we say, bit volatile. Sadly, David, you are absolutely right. By the way, David, welcome aboard. I don't know if I saw you come in, but if not, welcome aboard. Glad you could join us. But you're absolutely right. The comment that it always looks better before it always looks worse before it gets better is absolutely a standard. It's kind of like when you're trying to clear out all the clutter in your house. I've got all sorts of things I've been working on, and it always seems to look like it's gone through a windstorm before I get everything sorted. Yes, I'm standing up. That's why I'm walking away from it a little. Now, hopefully my voice is still carrying because I don't have a choice. If I don't move somewhat, I run into all sorts of neat little problems. But the dark side of the moon is a wonderful little setup because it's very socially active. You run into a gray here or a nord there. You go to the dark side of the moon and it's just absolute, there's absolute, not exactly chaos, but it's a real mixing pot for various different races. And they definitely have things set up. The one thing you got to remember, when you're dealing with races, the range from 6 inches tall to 15 feet, you gotta be accommodating where it comes to cafeteria setups. Okay. That's something you gotta realize is these guys geared to different people and different diets. There's nowhere, there's no tomorrow. Big J here. I hear it's like the bar scene in Star Wars up there. Big J, you're absolutely right. Without quite as much gunfire. Hey Ken, how you doing? Glad you could join us. No, I don't have it, of course. I do have pictures, but I will tell you this. I'll show you a couple. Ouch. That hurt. If we go in here. Let's grab this back. Now you run into this. People have asked what I'm dealing with. Now I'm still working on getting the rest of the pictures in. As a matter of fact, I've got to go out tomorrow and pick up some more ink from my printer. But humans go walking around. If a human wears spiked leather, if you're wearing a leather jacket with little spikes on it, and you got piercings in your face, and you've got hair done a little strange, humans seem to get very edgy about it. Okay. Picture this walking down the street. Now, these guys are only man-sized. But picture that walking down the street. Now, if you think a human dressed in odd garb is going to be a problem, how well do you figure people are going to adjust to this little individual? Oh, there you go. Now you can see the hand. Well, you couldn't see the other one. But these guys are the ones, as near as I can piece together, when the show Predator got brought out, these guys were the template for it. Right. So, that's one of the neat little things that we look at here. On the dark side of the moon, you get all of these guys, at varying times. But yeah, it's not only like the, just thinking here. There is something you got to understand. A lot of the races that you see in science fiction, many of them are based on something that really exists, depending on who the race is. But on the dark side of the moon, there are classes over there. The Moldakians use them quite regularly because when Mars gets closer, not the Moldakians, sorry, the Martokians, when Earth gets its closest point to Mars, that is when they send a lot of their class trips over. And they'll ship a bunch of kids over to the class so they can study Earth in real time. Okay. And yeah, like one of the things I found most fascinating was they ended up on a ship where they were, where there was a whole pile of little people playing what amounted to zero-G wall ball. Yeah, Ken's just asking, can we see them with probes? Well, the thing is, if they're outside, the answer is yeah, you can. However, you got to remember that the governments of this world are doing their level best to shut all of those down. Okay. As in they've got computer programmers that literally, and they tell you it doesn't work. But there are certain pictures that the second it hits the screen, they've got virus scanners that they use to hunt down the pictures. Now they won't get them all, but they'll get enough of them to leave the question of whether it was fake. Okay, they've got another scanner that will modify a picture to give it just that little bit of a quirk. Okay, so the people that can tell if it's been modified will go, no, it's not a real picture because it's been modified. On the far side of the moon, like on the dark side of the moon, yes, they do tap into the satellites that we have. Okay, in order, because you got to remember, they're set up on the dark side, but on the light side of the moon, they have built in satellite relays. Okay, in order to tap into the satellites that Earth has. Okay, and that's how they keep a lot of the tabs on what is going on Earth. Okay, sometimes it comes across more like a sitcom than anything else. Okay, but somebody asked me one day, well, there's a shock. We are sitting right now. We're only 40 minutes into the stream, and we just broke the 20 viewers in the chat room. Okay, this is absolutely amazing. Hey, football, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Bones, I don't think I've seen you in here in a while. Welcome back. If you have been here, just pardon that side of it, and welcome back anyway. Okay, but when we take a look at what's going on over there, okay, I appreciate that, Ken. I still spend a lot of my time hiding. Oh, well, that's no fun. Football, just a thought. Tonight, if you haven't done this already, I suggest it very strongly. Tonight, even while you're sitting there, okay, take whichever hand you've got, whichever one you choose, because I'm hoping you've got both hands. Put it palm down on something that normally sits on the ground. Okay, be it a recliner that you're sitting on, be it reaching over and putting your hand on the wall, a heavy table, or if you're sitting on the floor, put it right on the floor. And you literally visualize that excess energy running out of your hand, much like water out of a faucet. This will speed up will accelerate your healing. Now, this is in tandem with whatever you're doing. This is not a replacement. Okay. Well, all you got to do there, if you'd be kind enough to let him know, Ken, I'm more than willing to go on air. We just have to work out a time that I'm actually able to go on air. But that depends more on their schedule at this point than it does on mine. Ultimately, yes, Julie, it's grounding. Because you can, by doing that, Esau, as in Mother Earth, will use her energy to help stabilize yours. Do understand there is no illness on the planet that the human body cannot overcome. Although the problem is some of it's a little bit more devastating, and if you don't have the right mindset, it'll kill you before you get a chance to heal it. But yeah, Ken, get him to drop me a line, and we will work out a time. I have no qualms about going on air with him. Okay, just a thought. I'm not that hard to find. Pretty hard to get a hold of somebody. It's not a question of I'm hard to find. It's a question of whether I know who I'm talking to. Now, just for those of you that are wondering, like these guys do show up on the moon periodically. But as you can tell by their configuration, they don't do a lot of flying on the moon. The atmosphere won't manage it, won't hold it. Okay. This is another one of the people, and these guys come in on ships on a regular basis. Okay. These ones show up on ships on a regular basis. These are your chameleons. And they will do whatever they can for whatever, they do whatever they can for whatever they get paid for. For a minute there, I thought I was bleeding. Oh, I am. I love when my body does that. No, I'm not going to show you that. But here I am sitting here, and my body just decides, hey, I got an idea, let's bleed. Oh well, I won't bleed to death while I'm online. As a matter of fact, I was told essentially I can't. Yeah, Julie, they are mercenaries. You pay them enough, they'll do whatever they figure they can get away with. By the way, you cannot pay a chameleon enough to break consortium law, because that becomes an absolutely fatal maneuver for their entire civilization. And no, much as they are related, see, the chameleons, it's kind of like a family reunion over there on occasion. Drakes show up, the chameleons show up, the Tormodons show up, and I just screwed that up really badly. The chameleons are a warrior base. Your Tormodon are the mercenaries. Chameleons will do whatever they can get away with, absolutely. But that's because they are conquest oriented. And they live very much by the idea that might is right. And they refer to might as in physical strength. They don't have as much weight behind the mind, which is what the Srazazians actually focus on. Now, these guys, you're not likely to see these guys on the dark side of the moon. First and foremost, they prefer flying. Much more importantly, in a lot of ways, is these guys actually live on the astral plane now. Okay. These ones are relegated more to Hollow Earth. Okay, now I know of a few. And Bones is just asking which ones have a golden sparkle glow. The original Elfin had a golden glow to their skin. Okay. And a lot of that had to do with the way they were configured, that they were put together to start with. Okay. But there are a couple of other races that I know, like for instance, the subset of the Ennead, which are the people that the Hathor used to worship, also had a bit of a golden glow to their skin, or it was more of a bronze tinge, but same idea. You put bronze in the sunlight, it comes up almost golden. Hey, Beachy, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, in case you guys haven't done it, because there's people in here that I see very rarely. But if you're just joining us for the first time, if you like the stream, do me a favor and give me a thumbs up on the channel, and absolutely subscribe to the channel, and then share the daylights out of it. Okay, we're doing really well as far as that goes. Like I said, by the end of this year, I am hoping to hit 1,000 subscribers. Well, I'm a whopping 22 away from 500. Okay, and that has been in no small part to you guys. Matter of fact, quite literally, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have that many. Oh, okay. The original outfit absolutely do not. But the one, what the heck are they called? The ones from the option, the subset of the Eniod, yes, they wear full complete head enclosing helmets. Okay. Well, that must have been an entertaining run. Beachy just saying, I helped do the room raid last week to try to help. And yeah, things can get very complicated. Like I keep trying to watch what's going on here. I'm wondering if I've been pushing a little hard. Of course, now here's the thing, and I don't know what the channel is. Where are we here, Beachy? Can you give me a brief synopsis of what your experience are? Essentially, Beachy, when I was first born, okay, the day I was born, number one, when I remember coming down the birth canal, when I came out, Mom and Dad recoiled from me. I was actually born mottled green and black. Okay, so they, I'm yanked out of this really hot, cramped little place, really nice and snuggly, into brilliant, blinding light. From my perspective, had the heck beaten out of me, poked and prodded, and then thrown into an easy bake oven, also known as an incubator. That day, they hooked me up there because I was born like I was not in good shape, essentially. So they put me in the incubator, and I looked at them and I've had enough time here. I'm going home. Well, when I left, I had no intention of finding my body again. So I didn't even dig out the umbilical cord to find it. But that was when I ran into the Council 12 and got told point blank, you've got a job to do. You said you were going to come down here and give it another run. Okay, that job, by the way, is reminding people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Oh, Beachy, to be clear, never worry about that. My line of thinking and the way that the things in this room and any channel I've been on tend to work is I'll be going down here and then all of a sudden the topic goes that way and I do my best to come back. So there's no problem there. Essentially, I was told, you've got to go back. So much as I ended up flatlining in the incubator. Okay. And the doctors forcibly brought me back. Okay. What it felt like from my end was microshock. Basically, they hooked up tiny little paddles to me and went, you got to come home. Well, I'll tell you, not an enjoyable experience. Been a little bit messed up in some ways anyway. Oh, okay. Now, okay, but that in a nutshell, and I've been dealing with Offworld ever since. I started dealing with Talons, which are the ant-like people. We don't get along at all. Now I'm just scanning down here, and bones. When you first get into, as a matter of fact, let me just see. I do believe the chapter 3, which we will be covering in a couple of weeks anyway. Just got to double check, because if I remember correctly, which in the case of the birth of the wolf pack, usually I do. Okay. That's the aftermath, and chapter 4. Casey's chapter 2, it must be. Okay, the answer is, sorry, just got a little sidetracked looking for a little bit more specifics. But the answer to your question is yes. Many of the races that I talk about here, that many of the races that are actually on the moon or in Hollow Earth, I do cover, you do get to see how they interact with each other, what kinds of personalities they have, that sort of thing. So yeah, they are in the Yldrbac Chronicles, and they are certainly in these ones, like in Races of the Worlds. A couple of the pictures that I haven't shown, or that I've shown you, don't fit. Okay, like these guys are in book 2. Okay, as are the Ararahar. These ones, also in book 2. Now, on the other hand, the Kamalian, by the way, these are both Kamalian. Okay, both these guys are Kamalians. Just different cast. Okay, the Angelus is also in the first book. Now, coming down here, or going back over it. Hey, data and derivations, how you doing? Now the neat little catch there is I don't know who the Emerthers are. Okay, I can tell you the Council of 12, there is only one member of any race that is on the council. Okay, they only have one member, and if a problem arises with one of the races that is currently sitting on the council, there is a second set of council members that get moved in, so that you don't have two people from the same race deciding on big problems. Ultimately, Beachy, when you're looking at coming down, it's very much a question of reincarnation. When you're being asked, and I do, by the way, cover reincarnation in the Yldrbac Chronicles as well. But when you're planning on your next incarnation, you may come in as human, as alien, as plant, animal, elemental, doesn't matter. Something that I do want to absolutely clarify here, Data, okay, is that the Council of 12 is not headed by anybody per se. There is a person that is a, if you will, kind of like the Speaker of the House, where they simply make sure that things run smoothly. Okay, that everybody gets a chance to say things. Well, the good news there, David, is you actually don't have to. Okay, the reason people come to Earth is because it tends to be a short run. Okay, let's take a look at this. Humans have a lifespan somewhere between 70 and 100 Terran cycles. Okay, the Laborians, if you choose to become a Laborian, okay, Laborians are a feline race, but their lifespan is let me think here. There it is. Yeah. We have 365 times 65. They have a bare minimum lifespan of something in excess of 23,000 years. Now, the original Elfid, okay, who are still on this planet. Okay, they are, from a human standpoint, they're immortal unless they die. Unless they get killed, but they won't die of old age. Hey, Saint, hi. Oh, St. Pent. How you doing? Not a problem regarding being late. Half the time I'm lost in my own world anyway. Julie's just added, she always believed me, but said we don't talk about our paranormal type things. She was a Jehovah's Witness, and that colored her opinion. Oh, yeah. I have no doubt that colored her opinion. But as long as she believed, I will go back up there and Bones. Who builds the ships with the Venus flytrap contraption? With the breathing tube in the center of the shroud. Oh, those are your Cheechak. Okay, and yes, they are included in Race of the Worlds. But those are the Cheechak that have those. If you ever watched the movie Alien, they were based on the Cheechak. Okay, but they're the ones that have what you're referring to. And yes, they are, by the way, a real nasty group in some ways. Okay, because they do literally have acid running for blood. Does cut down on the amount of illness they have to worry about dealing with, though. But that's who you're talking about. Now, I do believe, let me see if I've got that document up. Ships. Nope. Which means we go back into, where do we put it? Not the Cheetah or even the Cheetah. Yeah, the Cheechak are usually, like the Kamalians are known to help get them around. Oh. I will type that in for you. I just want to make sure I get the actual. I've done it before where I've spelled it wrong. They got flack for it. There we are. That's what I thought. Oh, yeah. That figures. Type into the wrong document because that's always a good idea. Okay, here is how you spell that, Bones. Now, do understand, I may know these races by a different name than what other people know them by. And that's something I've had to deal with. It really was. Yeah, I've watched all of them. And I will have a picture of the actual race that they are based on. But don't get me wrong. The whole concept of that race was a fabulous backbone. And it really did take things to a whole different alien concept. Well, I can understand that, Julie. The one thing I found with sharing your experiences is way too many people, even in this industry, will look at you. Hey, Kimberly, how you doing? Glad you could join us. They'll look at you going, No, there's no way that happened to you. I believe in UFOs. I believe people are getting abducted, but you didn't get abducted. You've never seen a UFO. You're just making it up to get you and to get attention. And I see this happen way, way, way too often. Well, I'm sorry you're hard of hearing too there, Bones. you know, um, okay, yeah, I put right underneath your question there, I've got the spelling. But if you've got a question, if you didn't hear the answer, absolutely, Bones, and this applies to every one of you people. Okay, if you've got a question, come right out and ask it a second time. If you didn't hear it, I've been known to miss things. Heck, I've been known to do a lot of really silly things at some points too. That ought to be an interesting, the reality is, just a real quick note there, Kimberly. You're writing nonstop. You're now at the part. With that, do not let anybody tell you that, if that's what you've gone through, stand your ground on it. There are times when you'll just have to look at people when they go, well, where's your proof? And you look at them and go, you go find it. I'm just living with the reality. Yeah, not a problem there, Bones. I often wonder whether, because I sit here going, people ask me a question, I'll go, there's the answer. I don't always look to why I come up with it. Matter of fact, I seldom do. But hopefully the earplug and the earphones will work better for you. I love to say, this is why I tell people, if you've got a question, absolutely, ask, because somebody else in the chat room or somebody else that listens in later is undoubtedly going to ask a question very similar. Now, I am, like I mentioned the other day, just last week, this week I'm going to go start looking for a lawyer to make sure that I can get the right paperwork set up so I can take care of things like somebody else's book. Okay. Without you guys having to go, well, are they going to help me print the thing? I will deal with that without a problem, but I do want to get the contract in place properly. Yeah, okay. BG's just asking, have you done past life regression? I have spent a lot of hours with professional people helping with that. Okay. And the nice part about it in my case is I've had other people corroborate what I found out about. Hey Pat, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Past life regressions are very useful, but I am going to caution you about one little detail. Make absolute certain that if you're getting a past life regression done, make certain you get somebody that will not accidentally lead you. Okay. It's one of those things that people will accidentally lead you. Like, for instance, if they're talking about the appearance of somebody and they go, what color of hair did the person have? Okay. Well, this immediately draws your attention to looking for hair. The person may have been absolutely bald. Okay. But most people during a past life regression won't register the reality of it. Okay. I was asked one day what color hair a true Pleiadian has. And I looked at the guy and goes, number one, they're bald. So you might have a problem with hair color. Okay. Untars are the same way. You don't have hair to worry about. Okay. Now, Pat is, yeah. Okay. Pat's asking, apart from staying out of sight, why might the races on the moon avoid the side we can see? No sign. No, the sun is actually brighter on their side. Okay. The reason they do it, though, is because one of the doctrines of the consortium is leave people's belief structure in functional shape. Now, humans are still, by and large, convinced, at least the ones in, if you will, positions of power, are convinced that man is the only sentient being. Okay, in spite of all their own literature. So what ends up happening is they set up on the dark side of the moon because man does not have ready access to seeing it. Okay, that's one of the primary reasons they do it, to avoid disrupting Earth completely. Okay, now they already know that there is, I think the last I heard, was about 62% of the population, of Earth's population, believe that aliens are real now, in spite of the fact that so many people are involved in a religious, in a spiritual path that says they don't exist. The majority of people, needless to say, when 62% of people believe aliens are real, if those same people are in a church, in a temple that tells you they don't exist, you've got people that actually turn around and essentially say what is necessary to avoid being caught in a mess. Yeah, no, you are right, Ken. The so-called dark side of the moon is actually brighter than our side. Okay, but again, it also, by the way, does spin. So it's not always one side just cooking. But what is really neat is they use the solar power to generate their cooling chambers downstairs. Okay, like we are talking technology that is absolutely mind-boggling. I am just going to hit something here and hope I don't blow everything out of the water. That's always fun. What do we got? See, the neat part about the far side of the moon is it's not like on Earth where everything is built on the surface. Okay, most of it is built underground because you got to remember, one of the advantages of having a well-developed atmosphere, which we've got. Okay, one of the advantages we have here is is that we have an atmosphere to burn out some of the parts. The answer there, Ken, from everything I gathered, the answer is absolutely yes. Can I prove it? Not a prayer. I have no idea what the military is doing with it. Okay, because let's face it, I am not involved in the U.S. military, or for that matter, the Canadian one. But I have no doubt they saw something over there. Okay, because the thing is, there's a number of questions around that whole event. No, Beachy. No, I take all of the arguments about flat Earth and throw them right out the window because I've been in orbit. I know what it looks like from orbit, and rest assured it's not flat. Okay, I don't know. Well, I know how it came about, but that was disproven scientifically centuries ago, and yet people still hang on to it. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. You'd be better off trading there, Ken. Mining the moon. Let me ask you this. How would you take it if somebody all of a sudden decided they were going to put a drill through the back wall of your house? Or through the roof of your house? Or for that matter, the basement? This is what mining on the moon is akin to doing. Okay, now that being said, when they get to a point that they're in stable communication, people would be better off trading with the moon. It's kind of like trying to colonize Mars. Not a wise move since it's already occupied. Yeah, Bones is going, biospheres are hard to come by and real estate in the universe. Yeah, honestly, it's pretty occupied out there. I always got a kick out of it, even growing up. Yeah, isn't it though, D-Worm? You know, not completely. In all fairness, Beachy, the moon has catacombs around the surface of it. Okay, but the actual moon itself is not hollow. It was literally built solid to make sure that it stayed in a stable location that didn't burn out. Because the moon was built as a balance point for the tides on Earth. It was quite intentionally put there, but it was put there when Earth was being built. The thing you got to remember, and this is where they get the time discrepancy, the Earth was not the size it is today when it was first built. Hey, Gordana, hope you're enjoying the day. Hope it hasn't been pushed too far. When the moon was built, it was a lot smaller than what it is right now, but it was built in order to help stabilize Earth. Fairness, it's kind of the same reason that Mobius was put in place on the other side. But the moon itself, though there is life there, it didn't evolve there. Although I am fascinated to see what comes up later. Okay. But there's a lot of underground dwelling places there, usually temporary. There are some people that are permanent there, but we're not talking about one race. Okay, we are talking about a group of people from various races to make sure that nobody gets dominant control. Because you got to remember, the consortium is very picky about that aspect. Okay. Right. Oh, that's what I'm looking for. So I mean, we are looking at a real push as far as things going on. There is a lot. If you ever get a chance, and I will tell you, if you can astral travel, it's a great place to go and visit. Okay, there's a lot going on up there. Like I said, it quite often is a way station. If a ship is passing through the area on its way to the jump point just outside of Pluto, if they're having engine trouble, that's where they'll stop. Okay, and the nice part about it is without the moon actually having a full-sized atmosphere of its own, starships that are not atmosphere capable are able to land. Now, granted, they come into orbit and are pulled in via a tractor beam setup. Oh, I feel fine, but you are correct, Kimberly. That came out well. I've noticed that today. I'm kind of wondering whether I've been pushing myself a little hard. So I got to find something that'll actually loosen the throat up. But it's a little raspy, but I'm okay. Oh, I've gone through this. This is what I've gone through of this mug. Four glasses of actual lemon water. This one's got tang in it right now. Yeah, I was thinking that might be no, definitely not thyroid. My thyroid, health-wise, aside from three hiccups, Bones, I'll be sitting here, and if it ever happens, I'll get over it. You might be a little shocked. I've got 3 organs shut down automatically of their own accord: my right knee, my heart, or my lungs. My thyroid I had actually tested a couple of years ago, and it's running absolutely perfectly. There's just nothing wrong with it, which is not a bad thing in my eyes. But I appreciate the concern, though. Don't get me wrong on that. No, I actually went and actually had the whole thing tested Thyroid's fine. The adrenal is fine. Brain's a little screwy, but you get used to that. But no, the reason my system shuts down is literally because of the brain damage I took when I was a kid. Fever of 108.4 that runs for a couple of weeks will really do that to you. I strongly recommend you don't go that way. Okay, but no, it's funny. Poor doctors. Yeah, Shrink was absolutely. I love hearing noises. Oh yeah, I will. Like when I'm done, I do have tea and honey here. You put tea, honey, a little bit of ginger in it, and a little bit of lemon. Also known as poor man's. I don't know if you want to call it poor man's, but it's homemade neocitrin and works like an absolute charm on the throat. Yeah, well, see, I don't have lemon slices, but what I do have is a fair amount of real lemon juice. Absolutely, Julie. Thank you so much for joining us. That is my understanding. Is that is exactly the case. That's to you, Carl. The moon, there has to be a certain amount of mass, and this is why I say, is it hollow? No. Okay. In all fairness, Earth isn't actually hollow either. Okay, there's just a lot of unutilized real estate down there. You know, so I mean, when you're looking at mass, now I'm no physicist, but I do recall Earth being built, and I did talk to the individual involved in building it. Okay, and this is where things get a little screwy in my world. In all fairness, Beachy, as far as I understand it now, do understand. I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news in a decade. Okay, but I have heard people tell me that. I have had people tell me that because the moon itself has much higher density material under its surface, which is what the vehicle and what the constructs are inside the moon. You drop a missile on the surface, it'll punch a hole, but it won't go far enough in. This is why you take a look at it, and some of the craters there just don't seem deep enough. I will agree with you there wholeheartedly, Shadow. I absolutely agree with you. The reality of it is, well, in simplest terms, I only in the last 2 weeks have bothered looking at actual so-called food, even so-called cooking, in the last couple of weeks here. Yeah, the reality is there's a lot of things. What do we got here? See, now this is where and this is why, as a matter of fact, I don't think I put that up, did I? So let's deal with that right now. This one. Shadow. I will tell you this, guys. It's people like Shadow here that I tell you, if you've got a question that's a little bit on the different side, okay, drop in on his site. Drop in. If you like what he's got to say, give him a thumbs up and absolutely subscribe to the channel. But Shadow has way more knowledge. Shadow and Nathan both, and in all fairness, probably World and just about everybody that I know has more knowledge of what's been going on in the news side of things. Not a problem there, Shadow. from my standpoint, I do my best to ignore the news for a lot of reasons. Thank you so much on his behalf there, Beachy. You know, he's got some phenomenal information. Hey Philip, how you doing? Glad you got to return here. Where are we here? See, the neat part about it, when you take a look at the way the world is, mankind is so caught up in the idea of things being, if you will, kept in mystery, you know, so that you're left wondering what's going on, that it creates problems. Yeah, you're just a young sprog there, Shadow. I got a day or two on you and far less interest in the world. But, no, from my standpoint, it boils down to this. When something feels off, I'll know it. Okay. But I've run on instinct. And of course, hey, Christine, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Even my father said that the thing that concerned him with me was that I just didn't fear the metaphysical world, the offside of things, right? But there's no way I can prove most of what I ran into. That's an excellent idea, there, Shadow. I am curious if your son has actually picked a direction to head in, but I really wouldn't worry about it. The one thing, and I've had to caution people about this consistently, you don't have to have a path in life picked out by the time you're 20. It's just not a requirement. Okay, the majority of people that I run into are somewhere in their late 40s, early 50s before they ever have a clue what they want to do when they grow up. And then there's people like, and I hope you don't take offense to this, Shadow, but there's people like Shadow and myself and a number of others that we just look at and go, growing up, I'm not going to bother. You think about it. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was 13, and I'm still averaging twice a week at 59. It was funny in one sense because, I ended up in the hospital with a stroke, and I told the doc I was not spending New Year's. I wasn't spending New Year's in the hospital. That's not entirely surprising there, Shadow. No, when I ended up in the hospital with a stroke, I told the docs I was not going to spend my New Year's Eve in the hospital. Okay. What I didn't tell them was I had a game on New Year's Eve that I've been at every year for the last 20 years. So it was not something I was shutting down. In all fairness, the neat part there, Christine's just going, I know it's difficult for a certain type of keyboard. I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not. No, that's just it. I'm looking at Shadow goes, I miss Toys R Us. Yeah, it was a good little shop. Like I was saying earlier, turns out that my older brother may have a whole pile of figurines that I'm able to get from him, or more to get from his estate, because they're useless where it comes to selling them. Unless you really find the right buyer, and that's going to be a fun one. Yeah, you just have to have a powerful tongue. That's all there, Shadow. It's kind of like I was talking to a guy one day who was really upset. He says, I went out for dinner to a restaurant the other day with my grandmother, and she was, she is such a misbehaved individual. He goes, I could not believe it. We're in a restaurant, and we're sitting there in fine dining, and he goes, she had the nerve to take her fork and scratch her back, right? And she scratched her back with her fork, and he goes, it shocked me so badly, I dropped my handful of mashed potatoes. Yeah, I see that speech? The answer is yes. I think it's possible I caught it live, but I don't. I might have been between lives, but I certainly saw the replay of it. Okay, and the funny part about it is that speech of Martin Luther King was absolutely on the money. The neat part is you all have the ability to take your life from right where it is. Okay. You have the ability right now to start shifting the direction your life is going in. Okay. And to remove everything that's blocking your path. Yeah, and that's, the fact is, I spend more time sitting down now, unless I get caught up writing. Or yesterday was bad. Yesterday, I was actually in front of the computer on live for, I was on live for 3 hours, and I ended up on the horn for another 5. Not a good day. That might be part of my problem today. Oh, speaking of which, and I just don't know I just don't have the link. I don't think he sent me one. Just seeing if Eric Markham sent me a link, which I don't think so, but we'll take a peek. And no, he did not, which is an interesting setup. Eric, did he send me there? No. Okay. Anyway, what I was trying to get sidetracked to, and pardon the quiet there. Tomorrow night, like I'll be running my live feed tomorrow. What do I got going on here? Tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow at between 4:30 and 6:30 here. We'll be looking at the link between the conscious and the subconscious and getting it to move properly, to work in unison. Okay. I agree with you. Although I don't mind bathing in trolling acid. I actually did one with a character one day where we actually took a troll, permanently shrank it to about yay tall, and we started collecting them. And what we did was we put them into a bottle and put them on the table at the restaurant we were running. We had an instant carburetor. You just feed them the scraps, and they were happy. Well, I don't know about happy, but they were taken care of. But no, tomorrow we'll be looking at showing how to link the conscious with the subconscious and see how powerful that can get. But then Eric Markham, and I do not have his station, so I can't tell you where. Okay, or for that matter, what the show is actually called. But tomorrow night, which is Tuesday, I'll be going on air with him at 7 o'clock Pacific time. I just wish I knew what his channel was, but he unfortunately didn't give it to me. So keep an eye open for it. Or just look for Eric Markham. You see him in here periodically. And no, I have no idea what we're going to be talking about by any functional stretch. Yeah, let's get back over here and see what we got going on here. I've seen billy goats. I will tell you this, billy goats are really nasty little individuals. The nice part about it, when we look at people call it the dark side of the moon, and there is more going on up there. The problem is mankind is trying to figure out how to gain control of it. Mankind hasn't figured out how to gain control of its own planet. Grabbing another one isn't necessarily an overly wise move. That is just terrible there, Shadow. Just absolutely terrible. But then we've known for a long time that you're a little twisted. But, that's like the pot calling the kettle black. Look at the bright side. I can't usually type period. Heck, I have trouble speaking. This is why I started doing the reading. I don't know, has it improved any? In the issue of starting to read the Yldrbacian Chronicles or the first few chapters of them. Okay, now I will tell you, in a couple of weeks when I go to start reading on the end of an epoch, I won't be reading the prologue because the prologue itself is quite literally pulled straight out of the last chapter or a half chapter of The Birth of the Wolf Pack. Oh, what do you mean if, Philip? That's actually quite normal. Okay, Philip says, imagine if they had a game with actual cowboys playing against actual giants. Okay. They actually do. Oh, yeah, but they can cause heartburn really badly. So have make sure you got the Pepto handy there, Shadow. See, the neat little part, they do, and there are some games that are absolutely brutal. You should see Off-World Football. That's a fight, and that is Off-World Football. It's very similar. It's based sort of on medieval football in some ways. Henry, the answer to your question, it's not based on it, but absolutely what Henry asked was, is Stargate technology possibly related to quantum or subquantum realms? Not exactly related to, but it does actually tap into them to utilize the wormholes. Okay, it absolutely is used with that concept in mind. But it taps into that, and that's where it can get absolutely screwy on occasion. And yes, people have been known using that technology to step in on one end, and because of a hiccup, they end up showing up at a site they weren't planning on. Kind of like when you're working on a computer. You type something and the wrong thing shows up on your screen. The same thing can happen with the Stargates. I personally wouldn't recommend milking a troll. But if you're into that thing and that sort of thing, that's up to you. There's a lot of technology. There's a lot of technology out there that mankind has not quite figured out. I will tell you this. When they figure out the way gravity really works, they will make far faster advancements in the interplanetary travel, as well as with the anti-gravity machines that we're even looking at today. Okay, but mankind has to mature. Right now, they're looking at them as toys, or let's go there and conquer. Heading out into the cosmos on a mission of conquest is not your best way of making good neighbors. Yeah, essentially, Christine, there's the entire, basically it's set up. There are surface things over there, but the majority of what's going on over on the dark side is built underground. Okay, but it's a complete way station, repair station. It's also a resting point for people that are heading for the jump point on the outside of the orbit of Pluto. You know, it's also used as a check-in point for new races coming into the area. The answer there, Henry's asking, will humans ever be ready? The answer to that is unequivocally yes. Okay, point in fact, I call it fact because I've got no other way of putting it that I know of. But the Mobians, which are on a planet in the exact same orbit as Earth, okay, on the far side of the moon, they originated from Earth. And at the time they colonized Mobius, we had over 10 billion on this planet. Okay, with a maturity level that had no war, no famine, no jealousy. Okay, and the medical profession at that time was bent on making sure people were healthy. Yeah. Yeah, Shadow's going. Some humans are ready. Unfortunately, they aren't ready to let us be ready. Um, that's the funny part. There are humans that are ready to go. Okay. Most of the ones that are actually ready to go, though. Ange, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Most of the ones that are actually ready to go are, number one, not in a position to make that happen. It's kind of a catch-22. The ones that aren't ready to go are pushing the envelope. Okay. And they're not ready to go when they make comments like, let's go colonize an occupied planet. Or let's go invade this other world because we screwed this one up, so let's try not to screw the next one up. Turn around and fix the mess you made to start with would be the first rule. Okay. But someday, and I'm thinking at its current pace, if mankind does not tear itself apart, okay. The answer there, Philip, is now again, Pink Floyd and music across the board is the same as it is with everybody else. Okay. Do they know about it? Yes. Like I mentioned earlier, the monitors on the other side, on the dark side of the moon, are scanning mankind's radio stations, radio, video, telephone. If you think Big Brother is annoying, these guys watch all the little details. But have they heard of it? Yes. Whether they like it or don't like it, that's a toss-up. Appreciate it. The fact is, the Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon was absolutely, in my opinion, and I'm not a major Pink Floyd fan by any means, but in my opinion, it was a veritable work of art. I think a lot of people had that problem. Oh yeah, I told that. Dave Worm, and Dave and I had that conversation a long time ago. That Dave's station is one of the ones that they definitely are keeping an eye on. Okay, because of the fact that he's got an interesting way of looking at things. But and you ask Dave about some of what he's gone through, because I don't do that to anybody. Uh-oh. Yeah, pretty much. We like I've known Dave. It was funny when I first met him. I'm sure he thought I was missing about half. I was running about a half sack short of a six pack. And we do have our differences, but the reality is it was Dave's show that really pushed the door open. I mean, he was not the first show I was on. Years ago I was on Hazy Radio, right, with Lynn Ann Moon. And I forget Frank's last name offhand, but I was on their radio station a number of times. I still think that it is Shadow. Shadow he's looking at this emoji going, for a second I thought that was the Cookie Monster emoji. It's a sad thing what they did to Sesame Street by shutting it down because, oh look, it's not realistic enough. It is a kids show. Now I will tell you, this neat little book here, I call it neat. This is not for children to read. Okay. Now I do suspect you take somebody 13 years of age or older, it has nothing to do with adult entertainment, but the graphics in it regarding the combat scenes are not the type that you want your 6-year-old to be reading and going to bed with. No, your political radio is more of a comedy show. And so that's not much punishment. But no, in all fairness, the rule breakers are usually killed. If they break a rule bad enough, they just terminate them. Phil's just gone. Do they make their rule breakers list our political radio as punishment? If so, what crimes warrant a punishment that is so severe? Well, they don't use the political radio as punishment at all because it's more of comedy than anything else. But if they are told you are not to be seen, an accidental being seen is one thing. Okay. But if you're going down buzzing a major street, which has happened, by the way, okay, the pilot and the pilot themselves, the commanding officer, will be the one that is just flat out terminated. Whoever the actual captain of the ship is. It doesn't result in a problem. It doesn't result in a problem for the species, but they are terminated quite quickly. Okay, because you cannot have that kind of complication. Their priority drive, the consortium's priority drive. Okay. Their priority drive is make sure that the people of Earth are permitted to evolve on their own path, that they are not totally decimated before they wake up. Yeah. Phil's going, I'm just looking at this. I gotta ask Philip, Because, like I said, I am really obtuse on some of this stuff. But who is a Slim Shady, or what is a Slim Shady? You know, the neat part about it. Oh, that one, Joe. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to defer to whatever to looking in the science books, in the astronomy books, because their rendition, aside from the fact that we've got people saying, "Oh, that are saying, oh, Earth is flat." Take that, throw it out. But the size of the orbs, on the whole, is pretty solid. Okay, but I really cannot give you a definitive answer on that note. Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much there. See, here's the other little hiccup. When you take a look at Eminem or any of the primary artists, you got to realize I've been a country boy since I was a kid, which really went over well when I grew up in the Bible Belt, where most of the kids that were trying to rebel liked rock and roll. But no, on the dark side of the moon, it is a small civilization all of its own, but it's built underground. This is why you don't see it. This is also why it echoes so long. On the plus side, it doesn't echo inside. No, you could, in all fairness, Henry, the neural net, you could absolutely tap in, call it part of the quantum realm, because the neural net itself is the link between brains on the planet from every walk of life. Yeah, no doubt there, Shallow. If you made them anywhere near like we did, you're going to have to go have a shower after you get done dinner. But no, the neural net, and this is something that I will do my best. Let's go down the story and and back to the other side here, because I think I've got it already lifted here. Bingo. Friday, the 10th, as in like 4 days here. Okay, we're going to be looking at creativity, and I will go more into how you can actually tap into the neural net to amplify your creativity and thereby co-create a world that makes you learn, that really helps you look forward to what's coming. Again, I don't mean look forward to the end of the world. Yeah, isn't that terrible, Shadow? No shower, just need to take a nap so I'll have enough energy for my main snooze. Oh heavens, when you think about it, Philip, they call it outlaw country. Johnny Cash was the first, if you think about it, in my opinion, he was the first true rapper. Bearing in mind that Johnny Cash sang, he sang, or he rather spoke to music in the background, which really is what rapping really is from my standpoint. But yes, I used to listen to all those guys, and then I've just carried on with it. You know, I mean, his daughter Roseanne Cash did a phenomenal job with the Tennessee flat top box, but that's the music that I ended up in. It was funny. I was talking to a chap when I was still drinking, when I was still living in the bar. Guy asked me what my music was that I would personally turn on if I was listening to what I desired. Now, bear in mind, I like science fiction. I like science fantasy. My number one artist, right from the get go, was Olivia Newton-John. Okay, My brother was now a fan, and much as I liked his music, I was never a fan of any of them, aside from her. But that's a whole different issue. Yeah. Henry goes, I'm not a huge fan of country, but I love Johnny Cash. And that's just it. Music across the cosmos is a personal choice. It is a personal, what individuals like. This is why when people talk about, well, do they like this music? Well, it depends entirely on who you're talking to. Okay. I think half of the country had a crush on Olivia. But yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, that was the one that I really, if she'd ever come to town, I would have paid to go and see her. Absolutely, there's Senior Pent. From my standpoint, I'm pretty cut and dried. If the music has a good beat, number one, I have to be able to understand the music. I've got to be able to understand the words. If there are no words, it's got to be quiet enough that I can talk around it, that I can let it go in the background and not have a problem with it. There's only two types of music that I don't listen to. Okay, I like classical on occasion, but opera, the note hits a level that just wipes out my equilibrium. And of course, then we have something that apparently is called death metal. I will not even turn that on because that thing stops my heart. But I am coming to the close here. I mean, we're hitting, where are we? Oh, we're hitting 6:15. I start early. That's right, too. So, no, I'm not. Like I said, I run until 6:30. If I start early, that's fine. But, yeah, music itself is very much a personal thing. But I will tell you this. If you're struggling with depression, I will have to take a look at that at some point there, Shadow. Where is my paper? There it is. I'm just making a note of that before it goes away. Because I'm a firm believer that music is one of the best things available to help people balance, to help people find a balance point between them. Oh, the way that works, Christine, just to clarify from your standpoint. Okay. Now I believe you mentioned this, and if not, you are anyway. Okay. The way that you pick that up is if you're empathic, you're going to pick up this sort of thing. Now, that was Vigil from BOC. Gonna have to take a look at that, and probably tonight, because of the fact that, frankly, my memory is not that great. Heck, I got to be on a first name basis with her. Reaper, and the Reaper's a lot of fun, but you can really confuse her when you tell her you're only staying for a bit. And the neat part about it, when somebody earlier tonight mentioned that they mentioned that the dark side of the moon is kind of along the same lines as the bar scene in Star Wars, with all these different races, and they do have their own music and what have you. Some of it is just absolutely bizarre. I met in person April Wine and Harlequin. I will tell you, April Wine, weird people, but a whole lot of fun. Okay, and I don't know about the music, but I ended up working security for them. right? The people were absolutely brilliant. Okay. Harlequin, I was not impressed with the attitude of the artist. You take care, D-Worm. I'm glad that you could join us. Not from the because I got run, but not from the sloppy joes. We had a restaurant in town here that it was just a little hole in the wall. But I'll tell you, they had some of the best burgers ever available that I'd ever run into. Except for one small little detail. They were messy as all get out. Yeah, my impression of Harlequin as people went, shall we say, was less than admirable. Now, they may well have improved. Okay, as far as attitude goes, because when I met them, we're looking at 40 years ago. Okay, that's how that came about. Oh yeah, Chilliwack's leader really was. And my brother used to run roadie for all of the bands that came through town. Right. For all the big names like Dr. Hook and that sort of thing. I never met them. I only worked the one and then I was occupied. But I will tell you, when you get the opportunity to meet some of these other races, all you got to do is treat them like you desire to be treated and understand their culture is a little different. I'm really lucky in as much as they understand that there are certain things that just don't work well for me. What do we got here? Philip's going, Walter Bosley did a whole stream about symbolism and occult references in Blue Oyster. Oh, there's an interesting idea. Yeah, some of the interviews that people do are just absolutely remarkable. And the thing is, these creative people that are out there, and some, like I've talked to people that have, I've talked to a lot of millionaires. And the funny thing is, the real millionaires you want to talk to are the ones that actually have a heart and a brain. The ones that are tied up in the idea of money is what tells whether or not you're wealthy. Those ones I don't have a lot of use for because they end up creating more problems than I care to add. And what have we got? Chris Gables, thanks for the update. I'll try and keep an eye on that. Whoa. Holy mackerel. We ended up with 20. I saw it hit 25. I never caught it go to 28, but thank you so much for the update. I appreciate that, Christy. We are currently sitting at what? Oh, somebody dropped off our subscription list, which happens. Right now, I'm at right this moment, we're at 477 subscribers. In other words, we are 23 away from the 500 mark. I appreciate that, Joe. Thank you so much. The reality is, if it weren't for you guys, there is no way I could do this show and keep it running. Because the questions that come up and the attitude that I get off you guys, as well as the guidance, is absolutely phenomenal. I was taking a look at it, and I'm not going to be. By the way, if you've got a topic, I am booked right now. I think I'm booked until Friday. I've got things organized. If you've got a topic, okay, that you'd like to look into, let me know because I will absolutely add it to the list. Okay, right now I am looking for a topic for Saturday. Sunday's already dealt with, and then we're into next week. But I don't, I'm not in a panic for it because the next 3 days are already occupied. One of the things I am yes, we were actually talking about that a little earlier there, Henry. And that said, Saturday just got booked. Okay. In the quantum and subquantum realms. Oh, not a problem as far as answering the questions. Absolutely not a problem there. But the subquantum and quantum realms, we will deal with that and how that works on Saturday, on the 11th. Well, because that ought to be an interesting little deal. But the way I figure it, the more I can get organized, the more I can get things planned, the quicker things are going to work. So yeah, I'm still running at 4:30 to 6:30 because it seems to fit best, at least from my standpoint. So with that in mind, guys, the one thing I do have to remind you of is there is no way I'm going to look at this show, at this stream, and go, this is all about me. What have we got here? From my standpoint, if it weren't for you guys, if it wasn't for the support that I get from you guys, and much more directly, the real push, it went way beyond encouragement to get onto the radio, and start doing a live feed that I got from the people on Spaced Out Radio. I know some of you guys have been with me since I started. Okay, of course, when I started on March 6th of 2021 was when I did my first post, right? I did some before that, but that was when I started working and I started doing it permanently. So, holy mackerel. Okay, guys, I never even noticed this. This is actually today, right here. You guys are tied into our actual 2-year anniversary right now. This is literally 2 years to the day that I started posting and I started streaming. Well, I started posting it all. And for us to hit, what are we sitting at here? For us to get here, I mean, I'm just absolutely amazed. So thank you so much for that. Raven, glad you managed to get in. I've been watching the emails and what have you, and thus far, I don't know if you sent it or if you didn't. If you did, it didn't get to me. If you didn't, there's no rush from that standpoint. Thank you so much. But we are winding things down here. So, guys, thank you again for joining me. Mr. L, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Okay. My throat is starting to seize, and yes, I am going to go get something to drink to settle it down. But if you haven't done so already, give us a like on the stream, subscribe to the channel, and absolutely share the daylights out of it if you would be so kind as to do so. Okay. From me to you, thank you so much. Great questions, great time in the chat room. I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for sharing your time with me. And until tomorrow, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.